Thank you so much for having me. I assume everybody can hear me and the presentation is clear. So many of you here have probably played traditional games or seen your families play traditional games at some point in time. India comes from a rich culture of traditional games because every part of India has its own special games. The thing that got me very interested in games is there is so much that one can learn from them. Many, many years ago, when Kreeda was still new, I got this book called Kreeda Kaushalya, published many, many years ago. I found a ragged copy in the library. What interested me is this book was over 150 years old, and yet Hari Krishna, son of Venkatram, says, I organize the structure and rules of this ancient Shastra of games because scholars do not study them. Sadly, 100 years, 50 years later, we're saying the same thing. Nobody studies them, which is why I started Kreeda in 2002. The purpose of Kreeda was to revive traditional games of India, and not just revive them in terms of making them like every other game in our country, but to understand them and to create them in the true spirit of India. In fact, that's what I said we needed to do. Indian in spirit and global in quality. To give you a sense of what Kreeda does, I have a short video for you to listen to. It'll make it easier for me to refer to the things we do and for you to understand what kind of games we have. Because I do know many of you are from different parts of the country. And very often the same game may have different names in different parts of the country. But the lessons don't change. The meaning doesn't change. The essence of the games don't change. So bear with me. Let's just take a minute to watch this video.
Kreeda. Since 2002, Kreeda has been working to research and revive the rich culture of traditional games of India. The purpose of Kreeda is to document these games and make them available for future generations. Today, Kreeda is a vibrant brand focusing on delivering the best of Indian traditional games and games based on tradition designed to be global in quality and Indian in spirit. But Kreeda is not just about well-designed games. The team at Kreeda works tirelessly to research and test every game before it goes into the market. Every game is played again and again, testing it repeatedly to create rule sheets and codify the oral tradition of games and gameplay. Games are carefully captured and documented by tapping into the memories of senior citizens or documenting games carved on the floors of temples and monuments. Kreeda also works with numerous partners to understand the relevance of games in the 21st century in teaching mathematics, in early childhood education, in working with special children, in corporate training, in inspiring art and fashion, and beyond all else in building relationships that stand the test of time. Kreeda has also been conducting workshops and play sessions and training programs and talks and lecture demonstrations and roadshows for the last 2 decades in schools, colleges, offices, factories, clubs, special groups, old age homes, orphanages, and public spaces such as metro stations, parks, and more. Today, tens of thousands of people have been introduced to our rich culture of games by Kreeda, and many, many children who have grown up with Kreeda will transmit their experiences to the next generation. This is our tribute to India's rich culture and heritage, our effort to preserve and revitalize our traditional games, our legacy for the future. Let us Kreeda today.
A long time ago, when I was talking, one of the initiatives Kreeda does is we talk to many old people because we believe that senior citizens are the storehouses of our nation's culture. So when I was talking to one of them and trying to get her to share her memories, she talked about her experience. Of course, she refers to the game of Dayakattam, which is similar to Chowpad or Pagade, which is played across the country on a board shaped like a symmetric cross. However, I'm sure many people in the senior citizen category share similar memories. My remembrance is that 60, 70 years ago, she said, much of the recreation and the fun was within large undivided families. Games were popular with Daikattam. The katam or the grid was drawn on the floor. Competition was fierce and noisy. Participation cut across generations, and sometimes neighbors would join in. Others would be active spectators, encouraging one side or the other. Over weekends, this would be a long session extending to a good 4-5 hours. This was what traditional games were about. It was about families and people coming together, learning to play, to build relationships. And that is something we have lost today. With the advent of the nuclear family and with two working parents, this time to play has become something that has sadly disappeared. When we talk about play today, and very often when I talk about it, people come and ask me, oh, can I bring my children? Yes, play is for children, but let us not forget that adults too need to play. And a few generations ago, adults found time to play. Sadly, today, with the kind of pressure on children, even children don't have time for unstructured play. But why do we play? We play to pass the time, to interact, to have fun, to de stress, because play leads to spontaneous laughter. And laughter is perhaps the best therapy there can be. When in times of stress, in times of depression, what we need is laughter. So rather than playing games together, everyone is focused on learning. Even today, the title of the event is Life Lessons from Traditional Games. True, games have a lot to teach us, but it is much like telling a child a story, and at the end of it saying, the moral of the story is. The minute you say that to a child, the fun of the story disappears and it just becomes one more structured lesson in their life. All of us, adults and children alike, have a lot of structure. There is school, there is office, there is the pressures of home, there are classes, tuitions. What we need is time for unstructured play. Even today, when we were growing up, and my generation were growing up, we played cricket on the streets or we played chess together. Today, if a child plays chess well, the next month, the child is sent to chess class so that he can become the next Vishwanath Anand or whoever it is. Or if they play cricket well, they're sent to cricket class so that they can play like Sachin Tendulkar or Dhoni. So at the end of the day, what's happening is unstructured play is disappearing. People don't have time for unstructured play. Families don't have time for unstructured play. I have parents come to me and tell me, oh, my child doesn't want to play. He only wants to look at the laptop or the phone or the mobile or the PS2. But then families are smaller and often children don't have anyone to play with. So my answer to families is, why don't you tell the child, instead of go play, come play with me. But then for parents, it's easier sometimes to, and with their busy schedules, to send the child off to be busy rather than play themselves. As a teacher said, there are no backyards anymore or large verandas. And the children go from the confinement of the classroom to the confinement of the tuition room or are bundled off to practice another competitive sport. And that sadly has become the truth. And thanks to this, traditional games are dying. Because traditional games belong to the oral tradition. People remember the games. People play them by drawing them on the floor with a stick or with a piece of chalk. There are some cloth games like the one being played on the streets of Rajasthan that do survive. There are some engravings on the floors of temples that do survive. But rules are lost. And many of us, even if we find the games, have no idea how to play them. And with every passing day, more and more memories are dying, people are dying, senior citizens are dying, and with them, their legacy, their memories are going away. The need to document these games is paramount. It is absolutely important because every day I see more and more games that we are losing forever. But are traditional games relevant today in the 21st century? Yes, for children and adults alike. From early childhood learning and special education of cognitive development and motor skills and hand-eye coordination and mathematical skills to skills you and I need to be able to live in the world today, to modify our temperament, to deal with stress, to build relationships, whether at home or in the workplace. It teaches us life skills and leadership. Jean Piaget, the Swiss psychologist, believed that children constructed an understanding of the world through the assimilation and accommodation. And through that, he believed that they learn how to conduct themselves and behave in the world. Traditional games provide that scenario to assimilate varying scenarios. Some games are strategy games. Some games are games of chance. And many people tend to say, oh, game of chance, it's just a dice game. It's not important. But that's not true. Because in life, there are many things that we do not control that are an aspect of chance. Sometimes things happen in life we have no control. I understand that this group was formed during COVID. COVID itself was something we couldn't control. And there are many ways of coping with that. One can sit back and mourn what we lost, or something positive can come out of it, much like this group. So a game is a safe space where we can make experiment, where we can make mistakes. Mistakes we make in the real life can have far-reaching consequences. But in a game, it doesn't matter. You lose the game, you try again. And this is important for adults and children alike. Today, more and more children are unable to lose. They're unable to face failure. Every day you see in the paper children committing suicide because they have not passed an exam or got bad marks or something or the other. We see depression rampant among adults today because we feel we are not good enough or we are not successful enough or we have not made enough money. But learning to win and lose is absolutely the most important part of our development because no one can be a success all the time. And that's what games teach us. An old school teacher of mine used to tell us the sportsman's prayer. If I should win, let it be deserved, with faith and honor held high. If I should lose, let me lose like a man, and cheer like when the winners go by. And that to me is the most important lesson we learn from games. Motor skills, hand-eye coordination, mathematical skills and temperament. Even Srinivas Ramanujan, one of the greatest mathematicians, is believed to have played Adupuliyatam or the Bag or Bakri or the Tiger Goat game, a game of strategy, which he believes, he has said, helped build his mathematical and analytical temperament. It is not just in India that games mattered. We all, when we talk about games, assume that traditional games come only from India. Every country has its own rich culture of traditional games. We are fortunate in India to have so many diverse cultures and therefore a far greater variety than many other countries. This diverse culture has been the most important part of India. People who have lived here, born here, people who have come as invaders and settled here, everything is added to this rich culture of games. But it's interesting to see what other countries think about games. For example, King Alfonso X of Castile in 1266 said, because man wanted that man have every manner of happiness so that he could suffer the cares and troubles when they came to him. Therefore, men sought out ways they could have this happiness and made many types of play with which to delight themselves. How true that is today, even today in the 21st century, more true than ever before in our stressful lives, that ability to deal with stress, to take that little break, to almost leave the world behind, to lose ourselves in a game or in the environment of a game, to leave the problems of the world is an amazing experience. In the last 1 week, Kreeda has been conducting an exhibition of games, and we had a small space where people could come, play, have a cup of coffee, eat some traditional snacks, chat with one another. People came as strangers and they became friends. People came to play games and talk to each other, much like we did in olden times. People didn't just come and say, okay, fine, I have half an hour, I'll play a game and run away. No, the idea was to sit down, to talk, to share experiences, to even share problems while playing a game. A game is a catalyst for social interaction. And one lady who came there, who was dealing with a major problem at home with a very sick mother, came there and then called and told me, I'm so glad I came. I was able to forget my problems for a while. Games. Games have a place in every aspect of our life. And these games can help us even in the corporate world, because today, like it or not, all of us are working. We're part of institutions, organizations, where we're interacting with diverse people. There was a time, maybe 30, 40 years ago, when the kind of people who came to an office came from a similar background, maybe from the same state, maybe spoke the same language. That's not true anymore. People travel across the country for jobs. People travel across the world for jobs. And learning to interact with one another, learning to build teams, to goal set, to take decisions. How difficult many of us find taking decisions. All these come through to game. There is a saying in the gaming community, and when I talk about the gaming community, I talk about the online games. There is a saying that games create a magic circle. And for some time, when you enter that magic circle, you are able to leave the real world behind. That is true of traditional games as well. It gives us a chance to explore how to think. If I'm playing a board game, do I want to take an aggressive strategy? Do I want to take a defensive strategy? Am I going to take risks? Am I not going to be a risk taker? Am I going to play safe? These are decisions we take every day in life, in so many different aspects of our life. Decision making from the moment we get up in the morning. What can I cook today? What am I going to wear today? What am I going to do today when I go into work or when I go into school? What is the subject I will study when I come home in the evening? Am I going to, if I have an exam coming up, am I going to focus on these chapters more and take a risk that these will be the ones you're focused on? Or am I going to study all the chapters equally, but I don't have time? So how do I use my resources best? So many decisions, so many situations we find ourselves. The other beauty about traditional games is they cut across all barriers. The problem with modern games is you need to understand in what world they're anchored. Every game every game is a reflection of some aspect of our world. That is true about traditional games as well. In some aspect, our forefathers, our ancestors created games that force us to think, force us to strategize, force us to look at synergy, at how to survive, how to tackle different difficult situations. Because those were the situations they found themselves in. Today's games, modern games like Monopoly or Scotland Yard, focus on modern day aspects of life. But the thing about traditional games is they're elemental. It doesn't matter whether you're educated or uneducated, whether you're from the village or a city, whether you speak Hindi or Tamil or Kannada or Kerala or Malayalam or Bengali. It doesn't matter. You can even speak French or German, but the games are so simple that we're able to connect immediately. Swami Vivekananda once made a comment about the difference between contact and connection. And I think that's a very, very important thing because psychologists have reflected the same concept when they talk about common experiences and shared experiences. So when you go for a movie with a friend, it's a common experience. Once the movie starts, you're each watching the movie independently, and your experience of the movie depends on the movie. But when you play a game, it's different. The experience of playing a game differs with every person you play the game. You play with your friend, you play with your sibling, you play with your mother or your daughter, as the case may be, or your grandparent. Your relationship in the game is different. You may, when you're playing with the sibling, try to cut your sibling or play an aggressive game and try to beat them. If you're playing with your child, maybe you will allow the child to win. And each one is special. And that's how we build connections, like Swami Vivekananda has said. The games, traditional games, reflect the essence of India. Every traditional game across the world reflects the essence of that country. It helps us understand who we were, where we came from, how we behaved as a society, as people. And when we understand that, we can live together better. I'm going to share a few examples of games and the lessons we've learned from them. The game of Adupuliyatam is one of our most popular games. It's a game of the goat and the tiger, and many of you across India will know it as Bag or Bakri, tigers and goats. This board is very popular in South India, and in North India, you play with a different kind of board. But the concept is the same. The tigers try to kill the goats, and the goats try to surround the tiger so the tiger cannot move. What is interesting about this game is it's a strategy game, but let's compare it with chess. If all of you have played chess, you know that sometimes in chess, you may sacrifice the piece. You may say, it's okay if I lose this pawn because I can take my opponent's bishop or rook. In this game of Bhag or Bakri or Adupuliyatam, you cannot sacrifice a single piece. This is a game about community. It tells you that every member of the community must come together for a community to survive. Be it men or women, adults or children, or senior citizens. Any religion, any caste, any creed, nobody must be left behind. I've done a lot of work in the space of HIV/AIDS, working with children who are infected with HIV. And I've seen their struggles dealing with stigma because they're HIV positive. We as a community, we as a country, we as a nation, even within our own family, we cannot grow and be strong unless everyone is taken care of. Just take the family unit. If one sibling is doing badly, think about how the rest of the family feels. One person is ill, it has an impact on the family. One person is neglected, it has an impact on the family. This game gives us this very valuable lesson. And this is a peasant game, a game of the community. Chess, on the other hand, was a game of kings and zamindars, where the good of the all mattered more than the good of the individual. Neither is wrong. A leader has to think about the good of the greater good. But we as members of the community must ensure that we carry the community with us, every member of the community with us, by reaching out to them, supporting them in times of need, guiding them, and ensuring no one is left behind. This game is so popular, you'll find it engraved across temples all across South India. Such a valuable lesson we have learning about supporting the community. The game of Chowpad or Daikattam or Pagade, or Pachisi, depending on where you come from. Many people say, oh, it's a dice game. It's not important. That's not true. This is a game which perhaps best reflects our life. It is an interplay of choice and chance. Every game piece, the choices we make, which game piece am I going to move? Am I going to cut my opponent? Am I going to move this piece? So many decisions we make. And dice provides the chance. That's what it is in life. We can take some decisions. Some things are beyond our control. Learning to deal with those situations, learning to understand those situations that we cannot control is exceedingly important. There are things that we can change. There are things we cannot change. There is the serenity prayer which says just that. Give me the strength to change what I can, the courage to accept what I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. It may come from a different culture, but the lesson is still the same. There are some things I can change, some choices I can take, and some things I cannot in life. But I have to make the best of it and still go on to win the game. Even Emperor Akbar is supposed to have played Chowpad on a giant coat of marble in Fatehpur Sikri. This game has such a rich history and cultural heritage. We've heard of, many believe, while there is no documentary proof, that this is the game that was played in the Mahabharata. This was the game that was played by Nala and Damayanti. This was a game that was even played by Shiva and Parvati. We don't know. But it was a dice game and perhaps had the same concepts of these. Choice and chance, just like life itself. The game of Dadi, very popular in the Telugu-speaking states. It's a game of alignment, synergy. When three game pieces come together again and again and again. This is not as simple as tic-tac-toe or noughts and crosses or X's and zeros where you do it once. Life is not about one time. Life is about repetition. I cannot say, oh, I worked hard today. I don't have to work hard tomorrow. Or today, I worked with a team and built something. I don't have to do it tomorrow. We have to do it again and again in every aspect of our life. We have to work with all members of the family. We have to work with our team at work. We may have to work with classmates in the school or college. Or we may have to work with colleagues in a hospital or any other environment. Synergy. Like life, this game is dynamic. I don't make one single three in a row. I have to keep on making bringing three coins into a row to win this game again and again and again. Like life, it is dynamic. It is not static. You don't do it and say, oh, it's over, like X's and zeros or noughts and crosses or whatever you call it. In fact, many believe that this game of Dadi actually resembles a grid to even build a temple. Which influenced which? We don't know. Look at the age of the game. It was found on an old stone slab with Brahmi inscription thousands of years ago. We don't know if the game was engraved at the same time, but maybe it was. We don't know. There is not enough research on games to tell us that. The game of Pallanguri or Vamanaguntulu, or so many names it's known across the country. This is a game of distribution. We keep dropping game pieces in the cups. And every chance, you collect a few, little by little. This game teaches us that it is not one big effort, but multiple small efforts. That is what will help you win. Because sometimes there'll be somebody who will collect a lot of game pieces in their first round. But in the second round, they'll get one or two, whereas someone else may do little by little by little, steadily, surely, and they will collect the game. Interestingly, games like Pallanguri are played across Africa, known as Mancala, and so well preserved. People play that even today in coffee shops. But here, we have almost forgotten the game. I was very fortunate, if you see here, to find a game similar to Pallanguri cut into the stone slab in Syria, and another version of it in Mahabalipuram in Tamil Nadu. How do the games get exchanged? Along trade routes, maybe. And then we modified the game, changed the game. We have different rules. They have different rules. Solar CD, another game which is very popular across the country. It's a battlefield game. I have to go and infiltrate the territory of my opponent. I have to enter. Don't think of it as a battlefield and as cutting. Everyone says, oh, why are we encouraging cutting? We don't talk of it as cutting. It is a metaphor for life. In life, if I have to reach a goal, I have to overcome so many things. And every game piece of my opponent I cut is like my overcoming an obstacle. These are the kinds of games that we play. Paramapada, Moksha Pat, the traditional Indian snakes and ladder. Today, the whole world plays snakes and ladder, but the essence came from India. Every snake represented a vice, a character from Indian mythology who represented a vice, and every ladder represented a virtue. And as you went higher and higher, acquiring virtues, you reached Paramapada, the highest place, or Moksha, or Jnana, or Vaikunta, depending on the name of the game. The game had many names. It doesn't matter. The essence is the same. It is our own growth, our own personal growth that takes us and makes us who we are. Traditional games have a lot to teach us. And yes, it is good for us to learn from these games and carry these lessons with us. But more than anything else, it is absolutely vital that we preserve these games for future generations. Or else, 100 years from now, nobody will be sitting here talking about games. They will be forgotten. They will be lost. Kreeda has been working tirelessly. We completed 20 years this week. We've been working tirelessly to document games, to make them available for people to play, to make people understand why these games are important. My exhibition this week was documenting the places and the etchings of these games we found in temples and monuments. It was a beautiful exhibition showing such incredible research that we've done over 20 years. But I am an individual. It is only when everyone comes together, much like the tiger goat game, we work together as a community that we can revive games, promote games, and preserve them for future generation. And while doing that, maybe we will learn some important life lessons. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Vinita ji, it was such an interesting talk, and I was just jotting things down because I'm going to go back and read a little more about it and see if there's something that's available around in my vicinity that I can get for my family as well. And, we could just play. The holiday is approaching.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this very interesting and informative session.